IoT is finally accelerating, or is it? Let's look at the numbers. IoT adoption is on the rise, but as the definition of things varies, figures around the size of the market are hard to break down. So because of the lack of a unified definition of what makes up IoT, there are different figures from different analysts available. For example, here is data from Statista. But according to IoT analytics monitoring data, the number of IoT, narrowband IoT, and LoRa nodes using these four technologies for the same period accounts for more than 96% of all LPWAN nodes. Specifically, narrowband IoT leads with 47% share, followed by LoRa with 46% market share. And these numbers are quite close, to be honest. Other comparisons can get much worse. So this leads me also to one question. Why is LoRaWAN among the most used LP1 technologies with such a huge share of connections? Surely they started their activities before proper mobile IoT alternatives were introduced. But I believe it is due to the efforts of every stakeholder in the LoRaWAN ecosystem in driving market activities as announced by the LoRa Alliance. However, the changing international landscape has led to subtle changes in global adoption of LP1 technology. On one hand, narrowband IoT is recognized by mainstream operators worldwide. A large number of overseas operators still choose to deploy LTE-M networks. On the other hand, the market for unlicensed spectrum LP1 technology in China is starting to slow down due to the continued maturity and cost reduction of narrowband IoT. By the end of 2025, narrowband IoT and LTE-M are projected to account for 52% of all cellular IoT connections. Again, this prediction comes from Ericsson, who is, of course, backing the technology. Not enabling narrowband IoT roaming is leaving money on the table. A key barrier to growth of narrowband IoT adoption outside of China has been the lack of narrowband IoT roaming agreements between network operators, and it gives other players and technologies strength in their hands. As for A1 Slovenia, we started testing narrowband IoT in January 2018 and commercially launched it for the whole country in October 2019, while LTE-M is commercially available from end of May last year. If anyone would like to test it, you can reach out to my team via this mail, dti@a1.sis. This form shown is currently available on in Slovenian. Wireless is getting everywhere. It can bring value to so many products, enabling new use cases, new business models, or making them more user-friendly or smarter with AI, ML, etc. There are many technologies available, many protocols. That leads also to many questions. How to approach wireless if you have never done it before? We should think of the different technologies as different tools, each appropriate for their specific purpose and some being complementary. It is important that we provide these answers to our customers, partners, device makers, and be honest with them that sometimes we don't have the best fit, but we can support them in their search for it. Socioeconomic drivers for 5G and IoT are clear and nicely summed up in these graphics from ADL. Aging population, of course, one of the biggest ones, strict CO2 emission goals. So there are clear drivers to do something in this area. Digitalization is important. This was particularly evident during the crisis. More digitized companies are more crisis resistant. The digitalization of business processes is a particular challenge. There is usually necessary to build digital added value on mature ground structures, which usually work pretty good. Nevertheless, I'm amazed to see how far the IoT industry has progressed in just a couple of years. Many of the semiconductor giants leveling up their IoT sensor portfolios and technology providers beginning to standardize different parts of the IoT stack. IoT is definitely accelerating the digital transformation. process of companies and industries. We see interest in all of the listed use cases. MQTT is definitely becoming the backbone of IoT projects. IoT use cases related to the smart operations of a company are most adopted, followed by smart supply chain use cases and use cases involving connected IoT products. Of course, 5G and IoT also work indirectly through other technologies. For example, big data and edge computing are important part of the equation. This here is a typical view of the area once a telco realizes that M2M/IoT connectivity prices are going down rapidly. Applicable for any telco in any country, as written. The real value of IoT will never be in the cost ROI of the traffic or the availability of the network, but in what we do with the data that we send and capture. For the operators, it is how do we capture a chunk of that value will be key. And I'm not sure that this will be an easy task to do. So how do we get there? By simply claiming we thought of everything and are providing a holistic portfolio. Adding every detail we think of in regards to verticals we selected to support. Or try to think like we think customers think, emphasizing the benefits we see for them. Or like too many times in case of smart city or society, as cities don't involve the citizens and visitors enough, provide the whole portfolio that mainly benefits the city administration. To make IoT or 5G a business success, telcos must embrace co-innovation with industrial customers, system integrators, cloud providers, with other telecommunication players and end users. Collaboration in the form of experimentation platforms, lab and pilot projects is key to design scalable solutions and models, meeting customer requirements in each industry vertical, achieving wins for all parties, and transforming investments into new revenue streams. Some suggestions on how to tackle it. Cross-sector collaboration driven by governments and involve stakeholders is key. Sorry. Example of 5G embedded manufacturing research. The project aim was to demonstrate world-class manufacturing enabled by 5G communication, where project implemented 5G technologies in testbed lab environments and in real manufacturing settings. Additional examples, testing use cases where benefits of new technologies are more evident. In case of 5G, as we saw in our testbeds in Austria and also in Slovenia, use case of AGVs, AMRs, AR or MR. Europe is already lagging behind the US and Asia in regards of 5G. So we have to admit that conversation about 5G and IoT also represent the conversation about position of every member state in the EU and its position in the global market. That means two things. Firstly, can we innovate and grow as different states and as part of Europe also be a leading technology exporter of our products and services? And secondly, are we able then to offer our citizens a good choice of digital services that are developed on European values, such as the protection of personal data? For the best result, we all know that all the stakeholders within the EU should show an even more interest in co-creating a strong European industrial policy. Some good examples from broader government area. City of Vienna was supporting 5G expansion from the start and also the use of the technology in the real life use cases. Important part of this equation are also EU funds. There is a statement of Vodafone Romania that who is actively supporting and coordinating Romanian innovation projects with the paperwork for getting access to EU funds before the deadline runs out. And so are we, with around 10 active applications currently. We suggest every operator to invest some time and effort in it, even if you have smaller teams. We as A1 Telecom Austria Group also offer, in cooperation with Baberg Carinthian Agency for Investment Promotion, a 5G test lab in the Lakeside Science and Technology Park in Klagenfurt, Austria, where universities, businesses, and innovators can test new 5G use cases. Another example of government supporting development in this area, a nice small project from our colleagues in Croatia regarding the gaming industry. I've already mentioned A1 Telecom Austria Group. Just a brief introduction for those who may not know us. A1 Slovenia is part of A1 Telecom Austria Group that has around 25 million mobile and fixed line customers in 7 core markets in Central and Eastern Europe, and is a converged operator in 6 of these markets. With América Móvil as its majority shareholder, the group forms part of a world-leading multinational telecommunication group. América Móvil has around 278 million mobile customers in 84 million fixed line RGUs, as well as subsidiaries in 25 countries in North, Central, and South America and Europe. As part of América Móvil, the A1 Telecom Austria Group also benefits from economies of scale and the strength of a global cooperation, giving it advantages and synergies in areas including product development, technology, and of course also procurement. So what can we all collectively do to really accelerate the widespread adoption of 3GPP standard 5G technologies, including mobile IoT? From the listed here, I would emphasize support device makers, enable free testing, and don't let them get stuck. I always think of the frustration with OTA updates. Some partners spend a lot of time with LW, M2M, and narrowband IoT optimizing this, amongst other things, to conserve energy. And another important point, discuss issues facing the IoT industry and make proposals to the GSMA 5G IoT Strategy Group. Share your IoT roaming features with us. I'm a member also. Resources like this are needed in order for mobile IoT to really scale. So, thank you. And now let me turn you back over to Annie.
Okay, well, thank you. That's interesting. Do you think that the situation regarding roaming, narrowband IoT, for narrowband IoT, do you feel that we've turned a corner there and that we are making progress on the roaming?
Yes, we are making progress, but then in the real life, when you need some specific area to be covered, I have a life problem with this. I will not mention the region, but nevertheless, we were asked, how big is this customer? Is it meaningful for us to invest the time and to do the testing, because they didn't have it on their priority list yet. And discussions like this are really not benefiting us as operators and to reaching the scale,
Sorry.
No.
I was just going to say, so what do you think that's about? Do you think it's people don't see enough potential revenue out of it, that they're too busy doing other stuff?
No.
Like building out other types of infrastructure? I mean, what do you think the issue is there?
It depends on the country. If you have few really good big producers that also sell their devices abroad, like in our case, then this needs comes with the market. I've seen that also within our group, because we are similar, but also very different. Within some markets, there is no need for such service yet, because there is no market need. and it's all connected. But nevertheless, if we want to scale one time, then we have to go over these obstacles and enable it for other colleagues to make it scalable and to make it interesting also for your market in the end.
So you belong to a really large telecom group with operations in multiple countries. I mean, is your approach to put agreements in place with other big groups, like, for example, Vodafone or Telefonica is a good example, because as well as Europe, is, you know, a lot of properties in Latin America. I mean, do you do that kind of group-wide agreement?
Sure. We are especially connected to Vodafone. Problem with all these agreements is that they take too much time, to be honest. It could be done more agile because this is really the part where telcos are stiff, from my personal perspective. This should be a no-brainer and done really swiftly. But
well, should it be something that's automated?
Yeah.
The negotiation and the hitting the button to make it live too.
To the extent that it can be, yeah.
Okay.
Not everything could be automated, but yeah, to the extent it could be, it would make our lives easier.
You listed there, which I thought was really interesting, the top 10, I think, most popular uses of IoT. Do you think that moving forward that the order will stay much the same, or do you think that something that maybe is lower down that list might actually rise to be a bigger driver?
I mentioned the EU funds. We've seen that at least in the previous months, there has been a lot of possibilities for municipalities to engage, to use these funds to set up new use cases within the cities, smart city use cases. Something will have to be done in the electricity market because of the growing part of the sustainable energy sources, because the distributors don't have the insight into the lower voltage power grids. They know them themselves. It's cheaper to digitalize this part than build additional infrastructure on their side. But this all takes time. It's in a way the bigger rollouts are really stopped by thinking the thought of the end customer that this is a complex thing to do. In case of distributors in electricity market, it's their skepsis because they have to have everything secure and working for 30 years plus, and adding these new technologies into the equation is always a stress for them. And in the case of industry, they have from the start this divide from OT and IT part of it, and we are now kind of combining both now, and this is always a pain. And this is why I emphasize the test beds, the POCs, the support that we have to give to them in order to test everything before, even if we don't get fully paid at that start.
Okay, so the proof of concept and showing how it will work and can work is a really critical step. The issue with that maybe, though, is that, I mean, a lot of telcos and other firms run a lot of proofs of concept or projects, but they don't always scale. And I mean, presumably one of the key things in many use cases for IoT is scale. And I mean, how do you sort of approach that scalability?
Yeah, sure. That's why we benefit from the group, because some certain things can be done within the group similarly, because we learn from each other. We don't make the same mistakes and same points that already burnt our colleagues. So this is certainly an advantage. to some telco that it's not part of a bigger group. So yes, we have to use this knowledge and then make it scalable in similar use cases.
So there's considerable synergy then in terms of learning from proofs of concept and deployments across the group and for you. And I mean, is that organized in a formal way, or I mean, is it a kind of structure, or is it?
Knowledge sharing is something that is normal for the company. Any company, we are not anything special here. We have a couple of experts that support the group with this knowledge and knowledge sharing, of course, but to be completely standardized or something as a part of the process, we know whom to turn to. We are approached, but I think that actually would make it a formal way. So yeah, I could say that there is some structure in it.
You touched on the thorny subject, the difficult subject of the big gap between IT and OT, that's operational technology. Yes. And you said that you felt this was being addressed. Could you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, this divide is already evident when you talk to any industry player, not even discussing any IoT project, but generally they want to have their models, processes divided, and this is an ongoing struggle. And the best way to approach them with this is to emphasize the security part. We have some good cooperators that really are focused and specialized in also in OT security. So not just IT, because these are more available on the markets, so that we can cover both. And then through this we gain their trust, and they are then willing to try out more than previously.
Okay, we have a question from the audience, please. And the question is, does your solution offering roadmap, oh, blimey, I'm at it now, sorry, excuse me. Does your solution offering roadmap include data management and data sharing services, which of course is a long way up the stack from just basic connectivity?
Of course, we offer our customers a SIM management platform as such. We also have a branded IoT platform. So we are covering all the stacks that are, let me say, basic for IoT. Also, machine learning tools. We have Exoscale, infrastructure as a service cloud provider that we are owners of. And it's one of the founding members of Gaia project in EU.
In the EU. Okay. Oh, right.
So, yeah.
And the application of AI in IoT, there's little fowls flying around here. Can you talk to me a little bit about AI's role in IoT, and how far are we advanced in AI's use, and also what kind of use cases is AI being used for most commonly?
To be completely honest, from the first-hand experience, from the rollouts that we had currently, this is the least tackled area. Should be, I agree, because it makes sense to do something with all the data gathered. No? But as we see, I'm talking about industrial part now, the most questions come from for the use of AR and MR, so the mixed reality mostly. And the interesting use case also in 5G space is use of AGVs and AMRs in the production facilities, because they already see that with using of Wi-Fi in big facilities, moving the robots from one part of the factory to another, switching from one access point to another causes problems. So these are the most prominent cases now in the industry field.
So in AR and VR, how does AI help with that? Speeding things up, maybe?
Sure. But currently, the most used cases were supporting the colleagues or other companies with remote assistance. Also during the COVID, we had a nice example where this came hand in, because you don't have experts flying around because of the lockdown. This area is really getting traction now, and it's one of the nice use cases in 5G when you can really show the difference to the other technologies.
Okay. Have we any more questions before we end from the audience? I've been a bit shy on IoT. I don't know, maybe they're slightly overcome by it. Do you think it's the scale that is the trickiest thing of all, maybe, to achieve? It feels to me like you need to reach a certain critical mass, and that is then when the magic happens.
Sure. That's why I also mentioned the roaming agreements now. And I really reach out again to all listening to share their specifications for roaming, also to GSMA 5G IoT group. So this can be provided to device makers, and they know upfront what conditions are in which country, with which operator. This is not something to hit for yourself, but to share and make our community grow.
Okay, so collaboration and cooperation really is how you see the way forward for IoT to really accelerate.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed, the acceleration continues. Thank you.
Thank you.